Hello, welcome back to Pin My Podfic. This is the reading of another one-shot by the same author who wrote an inventory space filled with pain. This is again of the Dream SMP fandom. I just really love their works, and so yeah. Another note: neither I nor the author, uh, actually do support the actual some of the actual content creators of the. Just this is only for the characters. None of this is because some of them are kinda ass IRL. So yeah, this is So I'm the Villain. I'll Show You a Villain by missing noise detail underscore or Mew. Summary. Tommy wasn't born. He was created by death. He was gifted to her angel, thought to be an orphan, abandoned on some random doorstep. The angel of death really should have recognized the scent of decay around the child. It wasn't clear when it started. Perhaps it was when Tommy was exiled for the second time. Maybe it was when his brother begged their father to kill him. Maybe it was even before they joined the server. There wasn't a clear beginning, only a definite end. But an ending had to start somewhere. So where? Was it the old, abandoned family home? Or the ravine covered in buttons? Was it the crater-filled wasteland of the second exile? Was it the flooded landmark? Or was he always on the edge of breaking, of leaving his sanity behind? He was the child of death after all, and his mother taught him some things about godhood. It wasn't clear when it started. Perhaps it was when Tommy was exiled for the second time. Maybe it was when his brother begged their father to kill him. Maybe it was when, even before they joined the server. There wasn't a clear beginning, only a definite end. But an ending had to start somewhere. So where? Was it the old, abandoned family home? The ravine covered in buns? Was it the crater-filled wasteland of the second exile? Was it the flooded landmark? Or was he always on the edge of breaking, of leaving his sanity behind? He was the child of death after all, and his mother taught him some things about godhood. Tommy wasn't born. He was created by death. He was gifted to her angel, thought to be an orphan, abandoned on some random doorstep. The angel of death really should have recognized the scent of decay around the child. But like all babies, Tommy knew only innocence and saw the world as one filled with love. Then his father left him in the care of his brother to go adventuring with one of his old friends. Tommy didn't know much about his father for his childhood, and his brother left when he was 14 to start a new life away from him. He didn't blame his brother. He only blamed himself. Perhaps that's when he first started breaking inside. The next time he saw any of his family was when he entered a place called SMP Earth. There, he founded a small nation with some of his friends, and they took down what was essentially a god, an admin using their full powers. He became the leader of the business bay and was ecstatic when he got his first invite to a server, rather than just showing up in places and being accepted like usual. He joined the Dream SMP, filled with hope, and made new, strong friendships there. But then the admin brought his brother into the server along with his nephew. He tried to reconstruct their broken relationship and founded another country. He fought as a general in a proper war at only 15, proving to himself and everyone that he was just as capable in battle as anyone else. The fun didn't last. He lost his first two lives fighting for independence, giving away the only things his mother had given him long ago for the safety of his nation. Perhaps the first exile, when his brother burrowed deeper into madness and his father's old friend joined the destructive cause, was when he first felt the stinging of numbness crawling over his compassion. He screamed for his brother. As the insane man begged their father to kill him, he didn't get the chance to grieve, as his father's friend told him to die like a hero. He didn't get the chance to grieve, as he rebuilt his nation, welcomed a new friend, and made mistakes as any teenager would. He was still loyal to a fault, however, and when his newest friend was possibly going to take the blame, he claimed he did everything. His first friend on the server exiled him, claiming it was for the best. He saw the disgust in that friend's eyes as he was led away, taken to the place where he steadily grew more and more insane as time passed on. Perhaps the tower to the sky was where he finally snapped, staring down at the ruins of his home. Perhaps it was when his brother's ghost stopped visiting. Perhaps it was when he fled to his father's friend's home, hiding, and found a pseudo brother in the man. Perhaps it was when, in that flooded landmark house, when he betrayed his new brother for his oldest friend. Perhaps it was when that friend told him that he was never going to be his friend anymore. Perhaps it was when the whole server was watching him, feeling the anger and hatred and disgust rolling from their eyes. Perhaps it was when his tormentor, his abuser, tried to lead him away, back to his second exile with two sweet honeyed words concealing venom. Perhaps it was when he finally realized that no mortal ever truly loved him. Perhaps it was when he felt the magic of godhood surge through his veins that he realized, I'm not like them. Maybe I never was. Tommy had always felt different to those around him. He always felt this pulsating dark thing pushing from beneath his skin, whispering of plagues and rot and decay. He tried to tell others of what he felt. No one listened, claiming he was a freak of nature, an affront to the world. He quickly learned how to keep his mouth shut about things. He may not act like he could keep secrets, but he knew how to deceive people into believing that he was just some blabber-mouthed, angry child. He knew how to wave away suspicion like it was merely breathing to him. He knew how to act, how to put up a front, how to hide the truth. But standing in the community house, his dream tried to lead him away, back to that place. He didn't know if he could build up the protective barriers of lies carefully constructed. He felt the numbness he had felt for as long as he knew creeping back up his spine, the shadows raging beneath his flesh, roaring. He felt the hatred in the air, tasted the finality of his future. He knew that he should act like how he had always done. So, why couldn't he do it? Why couldn't he defy his instincts and follow a dream? Was Tommy finally broken down to a hollow shell? No, he couldn't be a hollow shell because he felt the darkness that had always accompanied him, trying to burst out against everything around him. Then he felt something he had felt before, but he felt it differently. He had always felt the withered roses on some level, but he hadn't in a long few months. So this was new. He could feel how it swayed to his thoughts, how it brought decay to the world in tune with his breathing, how they pulsated with that same dark energy that he had kept contained. He could feel them creeping like how most plants should normally creep, growing long black thorns around the community house, how they begged him to let them kill those in the flooded ruins. He could feel their compliance with him, and he told them to back away, to hide, to never allow the other players to find them, to wait for his commands. He felt them pull away. The darkness within him boiled and bubbling in joy at him for using the dormant magic. He opened his eyes, unsure as to what he had caused them, and stared at each of the citizens of the server in the eye. Tommy watched as the confused anger bled from the others. He watched them grow increasingly hostile towards him. He watched as his empathy and compassion shattered, the one part of him that he had never let the numbness touch. And he felt his love for all of them wither into hatred. When he spoke, he didn't shout, or scream, or sob. He just spoke steadily, clearly projecting his voice so that everyone could hear, but it didn't seem like he was yelling. He was just a presenter of a class, trying to calm down his rowdy students. He was the speaker before a gathering, droning on about something he had said 1,000 times before, bored from the repetition. When he spoke, he didn't have anything but exhaustion bleeding through his words. When he spoke, everyone privately thought, "Where's that loud, annoying kid?" Because he didn't yell. He wasn't passionate. He wasn't bold. He was simply stating the facts, as if he no longer cared about anything. When he spoke, he wasn't the Tommy he had carefully created. He wasn't the mask everyone saw. When he spoke, he wasn't Tommy anymore. He was the thing he had tried to pretend he wasn't. He was playing their game. He wasn't playing their games anymore. He was done with pretending. So he didn't pretend. Not anymore. Tommy sighed, body losing the tension everyone had seen so much they didn't even realize it was tension. I never knew my family. Sure, I had Phil and Wilbur and Techno, but they weren't my family. They may have raised me, taught me what I know now, but they were never my family. No. I always assumed my family had all died or left me on Phil's doorstep to save me from their situation. I always knew that Phil and Wilbur and Techno weren't my family, but they were the closest thing I had to one. I called them my brothers and my father because I didn't know any different. I only knew what they told me. I suppose I'm glad I never saw them as befitting of being my true family. Phil and Techno left when I was barely 5 years old, going out to adventure without me or Wilbur. Well, he tried his best, I guess. The best he could when raising a 5-year-old while dealing with the house at only 15. I saw him as the closest thing to a brother I truly had for a long time. But then, just as I turned 14, he left. He said he was going to be back in a week or so. I waited 3 months. He never returned. When I finally found him again, he had a son. He had never thought to try to reach out to me. Never thought to tell me. I never blamed him for leaving. I turned the blame towards myself. Who needs to blame others when you have yourself? Anyways, when he had left, I tried to follow him. 3 months later, I couldn't follow him, so I wandered. I found myself in SMP Earth, where I made some of the first real friendships I had ever had. But the admin hated us, tried to kill me, permanently, multiple times. We still thrived in that struggle, and when we waged war against the admins, who was using cheats, mind you, we fought and never stopped. I led the other four into battle, and I haven't ever regretted that decision. We won. I have no clue how, but we won. And my axe was the thing to cut off his head. After the admin died, the server collapsed, and I haven't seen any of the others of the business base since. Then I got the invitation for the Dream SMP. I'd never gotten invited to join a server before. I'd always just showed up, and no one really questioned me. So, to be invited to a server, that was like breathing hope into my body. I accepted, of course, and made friends. I met Tubbo, and I built a new home here. And then Wilbur was invited, along with my nephew. I hadn't heard of Will since I was 14, and I wasn't very glad to see him. But I wanted to repair our brotherly bond, so I helped him build Lemamberg. I became one of the generals of the Independence War, and I was only 15. Was finally seen as something more than just a child, and I traded 2 of my lives away for it. I gave the only things I had of my mother away for that independence. My discs. That was why I loved them so much. They were my ties to my real family. I thought that I could find real happiness for once, not righteous anger against injustice or bloodthirsty glee after a battle. Then came the elections. Then the first exile. No one really saw what I saw in that ravine covered in buttons. I watched as Wilbur drove himself to insanity, as I tried to find my brother in the shell of his anger. I didn't have the chance to grieve for his death when Techno released the Withers, telling me to die like a hero. I never got the chance to grieve, not as I was rebuilding Lemamberg, not as I welcomed Rambo into the server, not as I tried to distract myself from the painful reality of my life with a harmless prank. I roped Rambo into helping prank George's house. It was meant to be simple, light-hearted. Then Rambo knocked the lantern over, and the fire quickly grew far too out of hand for us to save it. When Dream started the trial, both me and Rambo were trying to prove our innocence. When it came down to the final verdict, I said that Rambo was innocent, that I'd been the only one who involved in the prank. He was new here. Clearly, he needed help with his memory, and I couldn't let him take even half of what happened to me. I don't regret that decision, either. Even in exile, I never wanted to bring him with me. I was compassionate, empathetic, self-sacrificial. The second exile beat that compassion out of me. Every day, Dream would come by, force me to throw all of my tools and food into a hole, and he would blow them up. The worst part? After he blew them up, he would pretend to be my friend, claiming he was my only friend, and I almost believed him. He would beat me for the smallest things, then give me useless gifts. He said that anyone could come visit, and told me he had handed out flyers for my Christmas beach party at some point. I tried hiding some of my things. I didn't know why at the time. But then, when he was digging the hole for my things, he found the storage room I kept my items in. He made me watch as he blew it all up, and then said he wouldn't be returning for a whole week. At the time, I was destroyed. I had just lost my only friend, and he took the nether portal in my exile. I built a tower, used all of the blocks I could find, built it high enough that even with feather falling floorboards. Well, you get the picture. But I watched the sun rise over the ocean, breaching the choking gray clouds that I had grown accustomed to, and I stared at it. I'd almost forgotten what the sky looked like. I jumped, and I landed in a small pool of water next to the tower. I wasn't meant to land in it. I just did, and I took that as the universe telling me to survive, to live. I ran and found myself under Techno's house, hiding in his basement. He taught me how to be a person again, taught me how to feel a slimmer of happiness again. The server was silent, hanging off of every word flowing from Tommy's mouth. But I suppose I'm not meant for happiness, for joy. I surely never really felt it. Not when Phil was still at home, not when I was with my friends, not when I killed the admin with Business Bay. Tommy sighed, raising his head to stare at everyone, and they finally saw the tears suddenly slipping down his cheeks, the scars that no child should ever have. I'm not built for happiness. I'm not built for people to love. I'm not built to be a hero. Maybe a martyr, but not a hero. Tommy turned, staring Techno in the eyes, and smiled bitterly. I cannot die like a hero, because I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to be happy, to be loved, to have a family. Then he shook his head, wiped the tears from his face, and stared Tubbo in the eyes. The only thing I have is the darkness. I've learned to keep tamed, to keep hidden, to keep chained beneath a mask of loud smiles. When I was younger, I used to try to tell others about it, about the shadows trying to burst from my skin and destroy the world around me. I told you that Mellow High was like me, a dark, twisted waltz. I didn't lie. Then he let go of the reins of the power bubbling beneath his skin and allowed it to consume him. The server could only watch as the youngest member, the boy radiating sunshine and joy, seeped a power long dormant. Tommy lost the brightness of his body as his hair grew to a dull gray silver. His skin became pale, and his bright blue eyes darkened slightly. His clothes changed, becoming gray and black robes draped over his shoulders. The server finally realized Tommy was no mortal. He could not be called a mortal because no mortal held the power he held. When he raised his head once more, everyone saw the pitch-black tears streaking down his cheeks, saw the eyes watching in cold apathy, saw the monster they created from a child. The dark, cloying magic turned his hands into black talons, spreading into smoke to encompass him. When it dissipated, everyone saw the crown laid upon his head, and the wings perched on his back. He wore the crown with pride, the void dark metal glistening with the tiny white stones dotting it. He held the wings with confidence, white scales fading to the same shade of night as his crown. But what frightened them most was the withered roses tangling around him. The petals bloomed, and thorns wicked sharp. The plant threaded over his wings, curling around his shoulders, and formed the lining of his robes. Tommy wasn't there. At least, the one they knew. He wasn't ever the one they knew. He was merely protecting them from the truth of who he was. He was the child of death, and he was taught of godhood by her. He wasn't powerless, or weak, or unloved when he believed. He was Death's only child, her pupil, her equal, and the server had just fucked up, messing with him. Dio missed Tommy, the young sunshine child who had killed one of the closest things to a god that a mortal could become. He missed the leader of the business bay, boy who had led him and the others into battle. He wasn't the only one who missed Tommy. The rest of the bay clearly missed him just as much, even after finding each other once again after they were thrown from the collapsing S&P Earth. He missed the boy who cared deeply for everyone except himself. The boy who clearly hid something from everyone but let his mask slip just lightly with the bay, the boy who called the others his brothers, his true family, because the only brother he had known wasn't nearly befitting the title of brother. He missed the hot chocolates, the warm smiles, and the reckless sacrifices Tommy was willing to take. But what Dio missed the most about Tommy was the sense of dark safety that ignited the long-buried instincts of his Ender Dragon hybrid's brain. The knowledge that the boy with such dark and destructive power could protect him no matter what felt like the mother a dragon egg should have. He missed the destructive force of Tommy, the chaotic gremlin was only allowed to drown out the doubts in himself and to relieve the energy pulsating within. Dio missed Tommy. The Bay missed Tommy. They had found each other, but not the boy. They never thought he was dead, or gone, or had abandoned them. They knew he was out there, had lost hope in seeing the Bay again, and had never thought that they were still searching for him. And they never had stopped. They still moved through server after server, quietly determined to never give up. The Bay was searching, and they couldn't ever stop. Not until they found the boy that brightened their lives, that protected them with such dark magic, that let his mask slip even the tiniest bit around them. They would never stop, because Tommy would never have stopped searching for them if he knew they were alive, because Tommy never gave up on finding them, because Tommy would never, ever leave them behind, because Tommy would never betray his friends, because Tommy would never leave his true brothers behind. The goddess of death had loved her son dearly, had entrusted her angel with him, and had fought to keep him safe. She still tried to find him, thinking that he had used his powers willingly, that her little boy wouldn't be terrified of himself like he was. She felt the tugging of magic from thousands of servers away, that sweet smell of vanilla and cinnamon and campfires. She rushed to her son, faintly fearing what had made him use his magic in such a large spike that she could clearly feel it from across the universe. The goddess of death had loved her son, yes. She hadn't known what would come of him, what had happened to him. She only loved him, no matter what he did. Tommy sat in a dead wasteland, pale gray, with the trees swaying gently in the wind. He held a single withered rose, his elegant robes replaced with a simple gray track pants and a lighter shirt. He smiled down at the rose, feeling his magic lying mostly dormant, gently lapping at the walls of his flesh, calming him down. Around him, the peaceful meadow of blooming flowers bent under the faint breeze, bobbing their heads up at him. He didn't wear the crown, but he still had the wings. They were splayed out behind him, soaking up the warmth of the sun. Perhaps the beginning of the story wasn't clear, but the end of the SMP was. In the wreckage of the server, in the aftermath of his divine realization, he whispered a poem he had only heard in a few calm dreams he had. Somewhere deep in the void, a bone-skulled child faces the sun and snarls voicelessly. Somewhere deep in the soul, a scar-scattered child fights against his death and emerges reborn. Tommy was not a phoenix, burning from the ashes to rise again in a perfect copy. He wasn't the same, but he did rise. He was reborn, perhaps. No, he wasn't the same as he was when he was born. He wasn't the same as the boy who killed an admin. He wasn't the same as the boy who had tried so very hard to hide himself. Who was he? He wasn't Tommy anymore, though he shared the name still. He wasn't anyone other than Tommy, though. Who was he? Who could he be? He raised his head to look up at the sky, the withered roses blooming around him. Who did he think he could be? Who does he want to be? He wanted to be the boy who had clung to his mother, who who had allowed himself to take off his mask with the business bay, who had still been compassionate enough to save Rambo from exile. Maybe he wasn't the same Tommy as he once was. Maybe he wouldn't ever be the same boy so free. Maybe he couldn't return to that confining box he had trapped himself in for his own safety. But he could still be Tommy. He could grow like a tree. There's a theory that people are like trees. They grow in whatever way their world guides them to, but they ultimately choose their own paths if given the freedom. Tommy was once a little sapling, allowed to grow his own tiny leaves before being trapped in the container his family and friends had placed around him. He was more than once almost cut off, but he regrew from the stump, and he grew thorns to keep the others out. He hid himself in the vines of thorns to protect the innocent little sapling hidden within, and he grew still. He grew into a still small tree and bore into a bright golden apple shimmering with purple light. He cared for the apple, watching as more and more grew, as the few who had once cared for him and protected him broke through the thorns surrounding him and cradled him once again. He gave each of those he loved most an apple, turning each into a disciple. He found his mother once more and sobbed in her arms for the boy he once was. And that was it for this fic called So I'm the Villain, I'll Show You a Villain by Missing Noise _ Ermu. I love like how at the end it is like kind of implied that Business Bay found Tommy again and basically like, you know, and how like he reunited with Kristen or Death herself, and it's so like was this author's first first work, but I still really love how they wrote and how like emotionally driven their writing style is. I just like it's the last part of this is a bit rushed since I gotta get to class real quick later in a moment. But this is a very fantastic fic in my opinion, and you will be seeing me cover more of this author's fics since I ask them if I could like podfic any of them, and they said yeah, go for it. And so yeah, check them out. Link will be in the description as always, and also the fic and the author's account. So yeah, have a good whatever day and time of day it is. Hydrate or die straight.